Hi guys. All right. It is actually green tea. It's kind of my nighttime. What I drink is green tea, or it's called holy basil tea is what I'll drink, just to kind of reduce caffeine. And it's cold. It's cold in my office, so hello. All right, this is awesome. I'm excited because I think this might be one of my more popular classes that you guys are going to join. And so I think, okay, yeah, so it's 8 o'clock and we're just going to wait for a couple more people. But yeah, you guys, you're showing up to my most popular topic that I like to present on. And it's basically, how do you reduce sugar in your life? And some people just, it's one of the hardest health things that they come across, that they just are like, I don't know how to quit sugar or reduce it or give it up. So we are going to talk all sorts of strategies tonight on how you quit sugar. It's actually a lot easier than you think, but we'll get there. Okay. So welcome. Hi, Brianna. Hi, Tim. Tim, I might use you as an example at some point tonight. Because Tim had to quit sugar at some point in his life, and Tim's a very inspirational guy that I know in my life, and he's what we call a world changer. So you guys stay tuned for that part. Okay, so I am just going to get us started. Welcome to how to reduce sugar intake and just basically help to manage your insulin levels so that you guys can have optimal health and wellness. I have found this to be one of the most profound things that you can do for your health, hands down, is to reduce sugar intake. And it's also the hardest thing to do. But I'm confident that you guys will feel equipped when we're done talking about why you want to quit sugar, okay? So bear with me. I'm going to be pulling up my different slides here that I've made for you guys. The annoying thing is that they're not in order, so I have to try to find them. So here we go. All right, now I do apologize when I make these slides. Sometimes my camera will just cover it up, but I'm doing my best. I make all these slides in Canva. If you ever have had experience with Canva, love Canva. It makes it so that I can do these presentations super easy for you guys and design them for you so that it's easier to learn. Okay, so let's just start off by letting you guys know that about 75% of Americans, it's kind of cut out there, eat excess amounts of sugar. 75% excess, okay? And many of those could be qualified as being addicted to sugar. And I'm going to right out say I was one of those. I was so addicted to sugar, you guys, it wasn't even funny. And I'll get there. I'll tell you my story on that in a little bit. Just some interesting stats, because I always like to give you guys kind of the why behind the reasoning why we do this. And it's science. It just comes down to science. And we'll throw a couple little things here. So when you eat sugar, it does a bunch of things to your system that I'm just going to let you know. It's basically like rust on your body, and it's like damage. It's like darts being thrown whenever you have copious amounts of sugar. And so that's where that first little thing that I have on the arrow pointing to my cookie, it says, sugar accelerates the aging process. And you believe it. It's kind of, it oxidizes your system. It takes nutrients out because your body has to process all that extra sugar, and it's hard on the system, okay? And then the other thing that it does is it stimulates the brain. It gives you a high. That is why we go out of our way. Have you all noticed that? You go out of your way to find sugar because you're like, I need something sweet. I need something sweet, okay? And I did that. I'm one of those people that I couldn't stop at one, okay? I had to keep having more something sweet. And it just was never enough, okay? And it is considered a drug, okay? They do classify it as a drug because it's so incredibly addicting. And then another little stat there, most Americans eat 152 pounds of sugar per year, or, and I know it's kind of a little bit blurred out there, 126 grams a day. Now you might be like, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. Well, if you were to understand what we're supposed to be getting in, you're going to be shocked, okay? And I'll get to those numbers soon. But the next little nugget there, that's right by the cookie, this one is mind-blowing. 100 grams, right? Just easily you can get 100 grams a day. Suppresses your white blood cell function by 40%, you guys. 40% for 5 hours. That right there is like, okay, if you don't have any other takeaway, just know that eating excessive amounts of sugar will decrease your immune system big time. And I will tell you, one of the first things that I noticed when I quit sugar, I stopped getting sick. Yep, I stopped getting sick. Now, if I did get sick, right, it wasn't weeks or days. It was literally 1 day, 2 days. And I'm not trying to, downplay any of it, but I got COVID a couple weeks ago, and I was sick for just 1 day, okay? It wasn't bad. It didn't kick my butt. And I attribute that. I'm very diligent about not getting copious amounts of sugar in. Now that's me, but I've also noticed that's any other illness that comes my way, I just can handle it better because, well, you can see my white blood cells get to function at their best, okay? All right, so we're going to keep moving on here. So I want to get a little bit more into sugar as a drug, okay? There is this really good documentary, if you wanted to look it up, it's on YouTube. Actually, it's actually a 13-minute segment. It's called Sugar Toxicity, and 60 Minutes put this on years ago. And you can literally just Google 60 Minutes Sugar Toxicity, and it'll give you a 13-minute rundown of what sugar does to our system. And one of the big things that these big medical doctors and PhDs and all these people who are doing major research, they're all finding how incredibly damaging sugar is to our systems. And one of the cool things on that 13-minute segment was they had somebody in a functional MRI scan, and they drank pop. And the areas of your brain that light up as if like you're having cocaine, it lit up when that person drank sugar. So it is literally one of the easy drugs out there, and it's also, in a way, some people say it's harder to quit than an actual hardcore drug like that, okay? So keep that in mind. In addition to that, the more sugar you have, the more your body creates a tolerance or a resistance to, just like a drug. And so you have to have more and more and more sugar to get that high. And that's where it starts to get really dangerous and a little bit scary for us, okay? And then on top of that, we're getting there. There's this sugar and brain health correlation. So once someone mentally connects sugar with helping you to provide energy, they may become dependent on it. It's all inadvertently. We don't really try to make it happen. But then they begin to crave sugar to balance if you become irritable, emotional. We all have those movies that we watch where it's like somebody's eating chocolate and ice cream because they're sad, right? And then we just start to self-medicate with sugar. So at this point, there's often little control over dietary habits, and a sugar addiction has happened and developed. So there's huge correlation between brain health, mental health, and sugar addiction, and how we use it as a coping mechanism to make us feel good. And while it works maybe in the interim, just real quick, it's definitely something that you want to be really cautious if you find yourself in that boat, because it will long-term damage you, and you'll have other issues that start to happen. Hi, Laura. Hi, Mary. Oh my gosh. I'm just sorry, you guys. I'm just saying hi to all my friends. Okay, so we're going to keep going with these fun stats, because I just like to give you stats so that it's like I'm not just making this stuff up for you. So in 2008, 91% of American children from ages 6 to 11 were consuming as much as 60% of their daily calorie intake from sugar sweetened beverages, okay? Some of you might not know me, but I used to be a teacher at a high school, and I did get to witness it firsthand, how much sugary beverages the youth would consume. And it was just, like nothing, no big deal. They'd walk into the class in the morning with, their Starbucks or their Caribou, their sugary coffee drinks, or like a smoothie or a fruit flavored something, right? We all know it was sugar, and that's what they're walking in with. And then, the same student would maybe then come back after lunch and have like a Red Bull, okay? So it was just one of those things that it was very eye-opening how many, young people are just, that's kind of their thing. Instead of water, it's a sugary beverage, okay? And so I'm sure you guys probably knew that also. But that's one of the very first areas that if you wanted to reduce your sugar intake is beverages. Okay, moving on here. So this is where I was talking about how sugar accelerates you. So literally there's studies showing that it like makes your cells, that it's because there's lack of nutrition, your cell turnover dies faster, and it doesn't like regenerate because you don't have the nutrition to like keep your cells intact, and so they die. It's called apoptosis. And then on top of that, every time your cells have to replicate over and over, there's these things called telomeres, which is your like the endings of your DNA, and that's what they say is what keeps you young and youthful, is those little endings that you don't want them to shrink every time a cell has to, I guess you say, repair and regenerate. And so that's one of those things that they found sugar to do, is it literally accelerates your aging. And so that's a really good tip, that if you want to avoid just not looking old as you age, really reduce the sugar. Like that's a big one. Okay, the other thing that it does, we talked about this, how it suppresses the immune system. Okay, so just to repeat for you guys there, 40% for 5 hours. And I feel like some of you have heard this stat before. But I have to make a note. One of my biggest pet peeves, and don't get mad at me, but one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone gets sick, can you guess what the common thing they tell you to consume to help you get better? Maybe someone can throw it in the comments while I'm waiting here. What's the most common thing that people tell you to consume when you are sick? And sometimes it kind of takes a little bit for your comments to come through. Yep. Guy, you got it. Orange juice. Oh, Gatorade's another one. Yes, actually you're right. Gatorade's another one. But orange juice. So this is my biggest pet peeve, when they tell you to drink these high sugar drinks, because, well, orange juice has vitamin C. Yes, okay, vitamin C is very good for you, but not in juice form, because it's just straight up sugar. Just eat the orange, right? It's going to be slower absorption. It has the fiber, or take vitamin C supplements. And then Gatorade's the same thing. Yes, for the electrolytes, I do like electrolytes, but if you look at the sugar content of Gatorade, it's like, holy cow, so you're going to delay getting better. So if that's a tip you want to take away, do not drink anything sugary when you are sick, okay? Maybe look for it in the whole form, if that makes sense. Or I will say, I really do like coconut water for when someone is sick, because it's not so high sugar, but it's really high in potassium, okay? But good job, you guys. You're good students. So I wanted to talk about, remember the statistic of, on average, Americans eat 135 grams of sugar a day. Well, the American Medical Association, they're up there. They're pretty good. They all determined how much sugar you should be able to get in a day. Now, this is added sugar, and we'll kind of clarify what that means in a little bit, but even just added sugar, for men, they're only suggesting 37 grams a day, women 24, and children 12 grams. And I don't know about you guys, but I know that most people are getting way more than this in just their breakfast, okay? Just their breakfast alone, they're already blowing it out of the water with those amounts. So it's just kind of an eye-opening numbers game that people don't realize how much sugar they are actually consuming on a regular basis, okay? All right, I'm just gonna look at a couple of questions. So what about natural sugar from fruit? Yes, we're gonna get to my views on fruit because we have to talk about blood sugar control overall, and we'll get there in just a little bit. So save that question, it's a great question. But I want you guys to pay attention to these numbers. If you're a female, just remember 24 grams. If you're a guy, 37. If you have kids, 12 grams. Well, I'm going to break the news to you. A granola bar has like 12 grams of added sugar already. Yogurts have 24 grams of added sugar. And so you can just understand we're kind of set up to fail in a way with all the common foods out there. And so then there's like, no wonder you feel horrible, and no wonder you're just like, oh, I can't lose weight, or no wonder I have an autoimmune situation happening, because you're just eating copious amounts of sugar without even realizing it, okay? So label reading is kind of one of those, another course that I'll have to give sometime, but I want to give you my story first, okay? So my story, back in chiropractic school, it's the most very stressful time of my life. It's 40 plus hours just in your classes, and then all you do is you go home and you study because your exams are so incredibly hard. It is literally like medical school, and it's 4 years after you get your undergraduate. So it's an 8-year system, right, to become a doctor of chiropractic. Well, I started studying in the coffee shops because those are the only places that were kind of open till late, and you need to like focus and get away from your home to be able to, really do well in your studies. And I did not start off, I actually never drank coffee until chiropractic school. Well, you all know the whole thing that if you're just going to start drinking coffee, unless you're a special person, you think it tastes nasty because it's bitter and gross. And you're like, ugh, why would anybody drink this? So most people start with the sugary coffee drinks. That was me. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a try. I'll figure out this drink because I'm going to be at Caribou studying, so I might as well figure out what drink I like. So this is where my addiction of sugar really, really started in, because I was stressed. I was just trying to survive, and I didn't really care what I was eating at the time because I just needed to just get it done, okay? So the drink that I would have every time I went and studied, which was probably a couple times a week, maybe 3 to 4 times a week, I would have this drink. And it was the Caribou Caramel Cooler. If you guys have ever had that drink, so good. And I would get the medium, okay? Now, over time as I was doing this was not including like a cookie or like some yogurt or like celebrating and wanting some brownies or going out for ice cream. That was even including the rest of my day. And so over time, it probably was about 2 to 3 years into chiropractic school, I started to develop these crazy symptoms. And if you've heard my story before, well, you're gonna hear it again. I developed an autoimmune disease. My feet started to go numb and tingly, and my face would start to have like shocking and kind of like twitching and like weird sensations in my face. My hands started to go numb, and then my legs would just kind of, they call it fasciculate, where your legs just kind of like the muscles would just jump on their own. And it would especially happen after I was exposed to heat or exercise. And then the last symptom that started to come into play was my legs started getting weak once I started going up steps. And then I had a high anxiety too. And so I was just scared. I was like, what is going on with my body? This is really scary. I'm so young. I was in my late 20s. And so I went and had a neurological evaluation done, and I'd had an MRI done. And sure enough, they gave me the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. And I'm not sure if you guys know about that disease, but it's an autoimmune disease that your immune system starts to attack your nervous system. And it can be in your brain, it can be in your spinal cord, it can be on your nerves coming out of your spinal cord. But lesions and plaques kind of just start to form. And so that was happening to me. And it was really scary. I was freaking out. I was like, well, what is this going to mean for my future? How am I going to be able to practice as a doctor? Because if you know the progression of multiple sclerosis, people become wheelchair bound. And then let alone you have to be put on high intensity, immune suppressant drugs so that your immune system stops attacking your own body. And as you can imagine, I was freaking out, and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go down this path where my whole life is incredibly changed, right? So knowing enough about some nutrition, and my dad, he was actually a naturopath doctor, we kind of took a break, a halt, a pause, and I started to evaluate what was I eating, what was my lifestyle like. And over time, I was realizing I was eating horrible. I was just eating trash in my system. I didn't care what I was eating. And so that was the first issue. I was just bombarding my body with inflammatory foods, and then you couple it with high stress. And so that is a set-up recipe for a disease. So what did I do? Well, you can imagine I had to change my diet. I first did, I kind of cut out dairy and gluten. That helped, but I didn't cut out sugar because I didn't put the correlation of sugar. And if you've ever done a gluten-free diet, it's actually very high sugar because most of the ingredients are rice and corn and potato. And so that was still very inflammatory in my body. But I thought I was still doing the right thing, right? Because that's just, you just try these things. You don't know where to begin. But it wasn't until for me personally that I just kind of was like, you know what? I am just going to try the cutting out sugar. And so it was a process. So I had to cut out sugar, and I cut out high inflammatory foods such as rice, corn, wheat. And so those are considered grains. And so I did a sugar-free and a grain-free diet. And that is what did it for me. That is what healed me. And that was probably 10 years now. 10 years ago. And all my symptoms went away. I don't have one of those symptoms, not one iota. I've never had to go on any medication. And it's just one of those things where it was radically life-changing that I was like, no way. How could it be this simple? But, most of us, food is not simple, but we put into our body, it's very much emotional. And I just had to kind of switch my mind and my thinking and my mindset. And I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one when it comes to this cutting out sugar and high inflammatory foods. You can go on Instagram, you can go on YouTube, you can go on Google, and you'll just see story after story after story and testimony after testimony after testimony of people getting healed from all diseases. Cancer, diabetes, any autoimmune disease. Sugar has a huge role to play in the healing process, okay? And so I just wanted to share that with you guys because it is pretty powerful, and I'm not ever gonna look back. Like, for me, it's not worth consuming and doing the diet that I was doing during those years of my life. It's not worth it because I have my health back. I'm healed, and I have not had any symptoms for 10 years. So that's my story, okay? But I'm gonna keep moving on. It's kind of a fun story. So I want to keep educating you guys a little bit on what I had to understand when it came to what does this mean about what is sugar in my life? What does it look like? And so we're going to do a little 101 of chemistry here for you guys, because when I talk about sugar, I want you to understand it comes in a package of other things. So I have to talk to you guys about carbs. And like, are carbs bad? Okay, so we're going to get to that. So if you've ever heard of the term called simple carbs versus complex carbs, I feel like you guys have, maybe been around the block to understand, okay, what's the difference? But we're going to break it down a little bit more. Simple carbs are basically what they say. They're simple. They're one molecule or two molecules. If you can see my little, graphic. And the one molecule, like overall, our body needs these one molecules to absorb into our cells and then make energy. Okay? So glucose is a one molecule situation where it can absorb into your cell and go into, it's called the mitochondria, and get broken down and give you energy, aka ATP. Okay? So when you consume foods that are simple carbs, it gets broken down really fast, or single molecules, and it's like boom, it's like a rain in the parade of just like dousing of sugar in your system and glucose in your system. Okay? And that's all fine and dandy if you are doing, I guess you could say having a good healthy diet where your body can handle that and like you have good insulin response. But over time, as people do that, where they're doing simple carbs a lot throughout their day, years and years and years, you will get insulin issues. And we're going to talk about that. Now, complex carbs, you can see that they look complex, right? And they're like these little chains and they kind of like go all over. And there's different types. It's like you've maybe heard of starch, you've heard of glycogen. Glycogen is kind of the stored sugar that gets stored in your liver or your muscles for like when you need to run, or your blood sugar is dipping, so that you need to give out glycogen to put glucose into your system. And then there's fiber, and so we need all those forms. And I'm not saying any of this is bad, not at all. What I am saying is you have to understand the types that when you're consuming them, what's happening when your body takes it in and digests it. And for the most part, you want to get your carb sources from complex carbs, because it takes longer to break down all those little molecules, and then your body can adapt, and there's fiber and there's nutrients, and basically it comes down to you're not going to spike your blood sugar. That's what this is all about, okay? Every time you spike blood sugar, you are taking the chance and the risk that you're going to kind of wear out your pancreas. And over time, I think we all know that can lead to diabetes, things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, metabolic syndrome. For me, it was an autoimmune. My body and I was having my blood sugar evaluated at that time, and I was pre-diabetic, okay, at the late age of my 20s. Like, I got my diagnosis at 28, okay? So that was kind of scary to say you're pre-diabetic, and here I thought I was healthy, right? Because I didn't look the part of being diabetic, if that's kind of a thing, right? I wasn't overweight, I wasn't old, but no, I was damaging my body with eating horribly and the high amount of stress. So complex carbs, just so you guys know the difference, that's going to be things that when you consume, it just takes a little longer. They kind of make you feel full. It's going to be like your kidney beans. Brown rice, you'd have to really kind of be cautious about that one. Can be like, if it's like, you want it to be hearty, better than white rice, but I just caution on rice. But anyways, I'll keep going. Whole wheat pastas, that's going to be, you're going to want to have an actual where it's not dyed. You can have dyed wheat, believe it or not, or you can have it, they just put food coloring in it to make it like whole wheat pasta. But I'll keep going. So fruits, bananas, green beans, sweet potatoes are a really great complex carb. Oatmeal's a great complex carb. I love quinoa. That one's a really good protein and a complex carb source. Chickpeas, black beans, parsnips. So you can see these are kind of starchy, and that when you eat them, technically your body shouldn't spike with glucose going right into the bloodstream, okay? Now, in contrast, you have simple. Gotta find my slide. It's the one thing is it just doesn't go in order. Okay, so simple carbs. I think you guys know these ones. These are going to be all the foods that are really bad for us and the ones that we love. And why do you think we love them? Like, do you have any idea why we love these like simple carbs and these like delicious things that are just like, oh, give me more? Any idea? Well, okay, so as it comes, we'll see if you guys guess it. But it's glucose in your system right away. And it can go right to the blood sugar, it can go right to the brain, and it can give you that instant high. And that's why we will search out the things that are simple, fast sugars, okay? I don't know if you guys knew that. But yeah, so simple carbs. These are the ones that we really want to be cautious of. And so now, when I was saying I'm quitting sugar, I also had to quit some of these things that were called simple carbs because, you know, you wouldn't think that bread is going to be bad for me or pasta. You know, people just thinking, oh, quit drinking those, you know, those Caribou caramel coolers, Faith. Knock it off. Don't eat a cookie. No, it's actually both because they all are actually sugar. They turn into sugar so fast in your system, okay? All right, so good job, you guys. Good guesses. Now, I want to teach you something called the glycemic index because, you know, I don't want to bore you with just like, oh, this is a simple carb, all of that. But there's this legit thing called the glycemic index. And this is an important concept to know because all the foods out there have been measured on how much they spike blood sugar. And so you can look this up online and be like, what are high glycemic foods? And I'll show you a couple of them here. What are low glycemic foods? Basically, when I eat this food, will it spike my blood sugar? Will it make my body just go haywire and not handle it? And then I have to do all this like insulin getting to my system and clearing it out and helping me to be able to function, right? And so this is just, it's a number that's assigned to foods that when you eat it, how long after a two-hour period of time, like what does it do to my blood sugar in 2 hours, okay? So I want to give you an example. This chart is kind of mind-blowing, and it's a glycemic index of different types of breads, okay? Now, if you look at the chart, you probably can't see it super well, but you could always screenshot it and zoom in. But that blue line in the middle, it says sugar. And so when you eat sugar straight up, just like on a spoon of sugar, you can see that it'll spike your blood glucose up to, it says level 65, okay? Now, you want it to be lower than that, so they kind of reference everything to this sugar. If you look at the very top, it says the French baguette. When you eat a French baguette, it spikes your blood sugar to 95? Yeah, 95, okay? And then going under that, pretzels spikes it to 83, puffed rice cakes 82, Wonder Bread 73, a plain white bagel, which everyone loves bagels, at 72, so it's spiking your blood sugar more than sugar. And then look at the next one, whole wheat. Whole wheat, okay? Why? Well, someday I'll probably give a talk on genetically modified foods, but I'll give you a little snippet here. Whole wheat has been changed so much over time that it's become more starchy. They've kind of genetically modified it so that it's not so hearty, and like they take out the protein of it and they want more of the gooey, the what we love, the fluffy breads. And so whole wheat is marketed healthy, but it is actually really high sugar when you eat it, okay? So we'll keep going down, down, down because I will tell you the one bread that I do eat in our household, okay? But you have whole wheat pita at like below that, stone ground whole wheat, so it's like more hearty. Dark rye, again, a hearty bread. Multigrain, so like the more dense, and heavy, and they're not so satisfying and fluffy, right? they're going to have more protein than starch. But the bottom one, and maybe you guys have heard me say this before, but artisanal sourdough bread, okay? And if you can get it non-genetically modified, even better, because I cannot stand genetically modified breads. But the artisanal sourdough bread only spikes your blood sugar to 30 points. That is not bad, okay? All right, a question. Okay, so is organic whole wheat bread as bad? It just depends on if it's, I don't know how the seed is. It'd be kind of a tough thing. One thing people can do that if they have the capability or the access to is testing your own blood sugar after you eat a food item. And that's really the only true specific way to see how a food reacts for you, because not everything reacts the same for everyone. But if you really want to control, inflammation and autoimmune and disease process, yeah, you could have fun testing your blood sugar after certain foods after you eat, okay? All right, what else? What about baguettes made from flour from France, non-GMO? That's a really good question. I definitely know it's better because it's not genetically modified. I know people are gluten sensitive, can have European breads because they're prepared differently. So it's very possible that those baguettes would be kind of more of a authentic, like the artisanal. So it's very possible that it hasn't been modified for the flour to be more starchy. So that's a very big possibility. So yeah. Okay, but yeah, so that one blew my mind away, how bread can be really damaging. And here we're all thinking, oh, well, we're eating whole wheat bread. Isn't it so good for us? Well, it depends, right? But you can definitely feel good about eating artisanal sourdough bread. And I pick up artisanal sourdough bread, non-GMO, Aldi. Aldi has really good non-GMO artisanal sourdough bread. And I'll just tell you, I don't react when I eat that. Like, I can tell when my blood sugar is just like, oh my goodness, what did I just eat? Okay. And then Whole Foods has them, and Trader Joe's, I really like, they have this sprouted sourdough bread, and Trader Joe's does not like genetically modified foods. But it's more hearty and it's kind of more brown. So it's not your typical, like, I guess you could say blonde or whiter color of bread, but it does taste really good. Okay, so hopefully you guys can experiment with that. Then we have so that's just bread. This is just a general, like I said, they've taken all the foods out there and they've done how glycemic index is, but I just want to do a quick, the arrow is pointing down to the bottom, like the ones that spike the blood sugar the most. And we're just going to read this up because, you guys, this is the stuff that us Americans eat. Okay? Jelly beans, grape nuts. Grape nuts is marketed as a health food. Grape nuts was like second to the worst. Jelly beans were the first, and that's what diabetics will, consume jelly beans to get their blood sugar up really quick. Well, they can do grape nuts too, right? Honeydew melon, Mars bars, so it's candy bars, shredded wheat, baked beans, potatoes, low-fat strawberry yogurt because, well, they took the fat out and just threw in a bunch of sugar, Wheaties, Frosted Flakes, and white bread. So just pausing for a moment, this is what people eat probably for breakfast, minus the jelly beans and maybe the Mars bar and potatoes and baked beans. But the other stuff in there, they're starting their day spiking their blood sugar and inflaming their system from the get-go, okay? So we're going to talk how that's kind of a strategy if you want to manage sugar in your life. We have to start with breakfast, okay? Now, insulin resistance is the whole game of all this. If you are wanting to avoid killing out your pancreas to be able to make insulin for you, stop eating these foods, okay? It's just not beneficial, and there's so many other alternatives to eat that you're going to be satisfied, you're going to feel good, you're going to lose weight, your skin's going to clear up, your diseases will start to disappear, and you'll look younger, right? So there's so many reasons. And it's just basically, like I said, the more you keep eating these high glucose into your system fast foods, the more insulin has to be released. And then your body's just like, I can't keep up. And then if it can't clear it enough, then it gets stored as fat. And then you all know, you just feel gross. And then guess what you try to eat to feel good again? The same thing. So it's a really bad cycle that you have to stop. And like when I'm telling you how to quit sugar, it's not just quitting sugar, it's quitting these high carb foods, okay? Or I guess you could say high simple carb foods, not the complex carbs. That's different. How are we doing? Are you guys learning? I get very passionate about this topic. All right. Okay, so the more body fat you have, the more insulin you will require to keep your body fat locked away in storage. This is why many people who are obese also have high fasting insulin levels. Okay, so if you are obese or overweight and you fast, like you go to the doctor and they want your blood sugar, and you usually have to fast, meaning you can't eat anything until they get your blood sugar. If your blood levels are above 126, that is considered diabetes, okay? Your fasting blood sugar should be under 100 for sure. If it's between 100 and 126, that is what they consider prediabetes, or you're becoming insulin resistant. And that was me. That was me when I was eating horrible. I was above those numbers, and that scared me, okay? Now, it's not the insulin that's causing these people to be fat. Rather, it's their pancreas is working overtime to keep insulin high. It's like your body's like, I have to keep this high because all this stuff going on. And that's to be able to hold their fat storage in, okay? So the moral of the story is, don't make your pancreas work so hard. And so as a family, I am like so diligent about, okay, how much complex carb or simple carbs are we getting in, and how much sugar are we getting in as a family? And so I really try to go throughout my day of, what am I going to give my kids for lunch? What I'm going to feed my family for dinner? Is it going to spike their blood sugar? Okay. Now I can have that ability because A, I'm a doctor, right? But B, it's because I had to learn the hard way, and I don't want to set my kids up to have, a failure of having their life be that a disease is their identity, right? And so that was kind of a scary reality, that when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I was like, I am not going to partner with this as my disease. This is not me, right? When someone gives you a diagnosis, that is not you. You do not have to claim that. So many of us start to, right? And we start to kind of say, well, my diabetes, my cancer, right? So it's, we identify with this now thing. And I want you guys to know our bodies are made to heal, but it's a mindset, and it's once you're given this sentence, right? Because I could have accepted the sentence of having multiple sclerosis and just been like, okay, I'm going to live my life in this journey of, now this is me. But I was like, no, I knew there was better, and I knew there was a way, and I'm not the only one, right? And so I want to give a little bit of a shout out to my friend Tim, who is on here. Tim, I wish you could talk. Maybe someday we'll have to have Tim give a Instagram live. Tim is a friend of mine, and he's a unique story, but he was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in his 20s. And, he probably could have a similar story to the foods he was eating at that time. And then lifelong, he was eating those same foods, and then he just kind of had some medical complications with rheumatoid arthritis, and he had some heart complications, and he died 3 times. That one's a fun one to tell people. He died 3 times. The first one from, Tim, you'll have to tell me which flu strain, H1N1 or something like that. So yes, when he died, it means he flatlined, and yes, they were able to bring him back. And he flatlined because his immune system, and he was so sick, and so he's on all these medications and not eating well. Okay, so that's time number one. Time number two was, I think, another virus. And then time number three was a ruptured aorta. Okay, and that's pretty much your dad on that one. Okay, good. Tim's commenting. And so Tim flatlined 3 times, okay? Then years later, he shows up in, chiropractic clinic, and he's like, my back hurts, I can't sleep, I don't feel good. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know how I'm going to help this guy because he's died 3 times. And he has a whole list of medical issues. And so we're like, okay, let's take you on, Tim. Let's just, let's love on you. Let's give you adjustments. That's because that's what I know how to do. Let's fix the scar tissue and adhesions, and let's just see what we can do. And we were only getting so far with Tim. And I don't know how long we were treating you, Tim, for. You remember. But yes, I kind of had like a come to Jesus moment with Tim, and we kind of sat down in the treatment room, and I said to Tim, I don't know if I can help you anymore. And I said, basically, we need to change your diet. And Tim, I think you explained that you were a little bit hesitant, because what I suggested was, Tim, you got to stop sugar and grains. And you were like, what? Wait a minute. And I do remember you saying, well, I want to go talk to my heart surgeon, or I forget, you have to mention which surgeon. Anyway, I remember saying the surgeon, or you were telling me that the surgeon or your doctor was saying, when you told him you're going to try to change your diet to get healthy and to feel better, the doctor said, well, you've suffered enough already. Why would you want to suffer anymore? Okay? And I just remember being like, what? It was like, and then I got mad, right? So Tim agreed to change his diet, to cut down on, well, pretty much try to cut down sugar as much as possible. And I think he did for a period of time, because he didn't realize yogurt had a ton of sugar, and he was consuming yogurt thinking it was healthy. Anyways, so about 3 months, Tim, how much weight did you lose? It was crazy amount of I don't know, he'll put it in the comments how much weight he lost. But he lost weight. He stopped having pain. He could sleep on his back because he wasn't in so much pain. He started to get off a lot of medications. At that time, you were on 2 handfuls of medications, and you were starting to be able to, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, get rid of them all. And it was because he gave up eating sugar, and 45 pounds you lost. Gave up sugar and grains, right? Because the grains were the rice, the corn, wheat, so those things that were turning into sugar as soon as he ate them anyways, okay? And most of us think those are healthy foods. Well, they are if you can handle it, but Tim's body was so sick that it was just basically pouring gasoline nonstop on a fire, and he had no chance to get that, ever a break. So he needed to take it all out, let his body heal, and it was really cool, really exciting. And so thanks, Tim. Someday he'll share his story. It's way more detailed, way more involved, very powerful message. I even interviewed Tim multiple times because he would come into my health classes, and he would give his testimony and his story to all the high school students, and they would just be like, wow. Okay. Oh, yes, you loved your sugar mini wheats. Mm-hmm. Oh, and Tim's going to write a book, just so you guys know. So if you ever want to read a story, it's pretty powerful. So how do you quit sugar, right? How do you do this? Because, it's all fine and dandy. I can tell you all these cool things, and it's like, woohoo, rah, rah, let's quit sugar. Well, I just had to pause for a moment before we actually get into some of the steps that you can do to kind of let your body get there. You have to tell yourself you are worth the change. You are worth having a healthy lifestyle. You are worth being taken care of. You are worth putting your health first. Because if you don't do this, you're just gonna it's just gonna be like a trend and a fad, and you'll maybe last 2 weeks. So you have to start with, I'm worth taking care of myself. I am an investment, right? If you want to look at it that way, we'll invest more in our car, our house, other family members. But for some reason, we won't invest in ourselves. I don't know what it is. It's like a psychology thing. But you have to stop doing that, okay? Because then you're just, right? Then there's no point. So you have value, and you have to have the discipline every day to say, I'm worth taking care of myself. And it's going to be hard, and there's going to be times I want to quit, and that's humanness. But you cannot give up on yourself. No matter what you think is going to happen, stuff gets in the way, random life events, but start over. Don't give up on yourself. For me, it took a while, to just say that, I cured myself of MS. It took me 5 to 7 years of just figuring it out and pushing forward and just saying, you know what? I'm not giving up, and I'm not going to let the diagnosis become my life, okay? So I know I'm spending a lot of time on that, but it's very, very, very important, okay? And if it's one of those things where you want to do, I would highly suggest talking to people that you really care a lot about, and that they can give you wise counsel, and that there's kind of an accountability, and be like, I'm struggling. I don't feel like I can do these things. Get a team around you and have your cheerleaders say, you can do this. We want you healthy. We want you well. And hands down, your family wants you living a long life, living your purpose, rocking out, your passions. We all want everyone to be well, okay? So it's not like you have to do it alone, and I don't want you to do it alone, because it's just, life is not to be done alone, right? Especially when it comes to health and wellness. So if you want to quit sugar, there's a lot of ways to go about it. I'm going to give you 5 tips, and it's more than this here, but this is just a little fun graphic that I made for Instagram. But we're going to give you 5 ways to go about it, okay? So the first steps, here we go. Gotta find my slide. Okay. I said, you do you, boo. Okay? You do you, boo, because everybody's different. And to tell everyone, you have to do it, A plus B equals C, no, that's just not going to happen. Everybody has a different life. Everybody has different things going on. But I do know that there's 5 ways to go about it to reduce the burden and the inflammation on your body, and to get you feeling good, okay? So the number 1 method, cold turkey. Some people have the willpower. They have the willpower to stop sugar, the willpower to stop eating simple carbs. For me, it was one of those things. I was so sick, and I had a disease, an autoimmune disease, that I got serious fast. Okay, I had to. And sometimes pain is a motivator, and sometimes a lot of us we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and the pain of it all is enough to be like, I'm done. I'm doing this. So that was me. I was able to do cold turkey on some things, but then I also did the other ones, okay? And we're going to talk about that. You can swap foods. I'll give you examples. You can substitute ingredients. I'm going to give you examples. You can simplify which meals, but I'm going to tell you to simplify breakfast, meaning breakfast is the worst meal choices that people choose to begin their day, right? We're having cereal, we're having white toast or wheat toast, and that's going to be sugar, right? We're having sugar-laden yogurts, we're having juices, bagels. I mean, you guys tell me, sugar mini wheats, okay? So what is the sugary, simple carb stuff that you're eating for breakfast? Well, it's pretty much 90% of Americans, right? And then, some people can fast. So that's the The only cold turkey that works for me is so fat is... You'll have to explain that more, Guy. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Oh, is fasting. Yes, okay, so that is another thing that people will do. Fasting from foods, it resets your insulin receptors. And you don't have to fast from all foods, but you can fast from certain foods like your juices and your sugars and whatnot. But there's this like 3-day rule. After about day 3, your body gets used to it. The first day and a half are pretty easy. Be like, oh, I'm just gonna like not put sugar in my coffee, right? Well, about day 2, day 3, you're like, oh my goodness, I really want sugar in my coffee. I really want sugar in my coffee. I don't know if I can do this. And so then if you can make it past that 3-day mark of fasting from the foods that kind of control you, that's a big step, okay? And so yeah, I could have put fasting there, but you know, that's honestly another good topic for a good day, because fasting is an amazing, powerful tool that people can do. Okay, so an overnight fast of 14 plus hours is good and considered to be a fast. So some people, like if I'm talking about simplified breakfast, some people do choose to skip breakfast as part of a fast. So they'll be doing these, it's called 16-8 fast, where you're not eating anything for 16 hours, you'll eat stuff for 8 hours. Or there's a 12-hour fast, 12-hour fast. And so let's just say you go to bed at 8, or you stop eating at 8, and then you wake up at 8. Well, that's a 12-hour fast. Some people go further than that, so then they are continuing to fast. And there's really powerful things in fasting in that it repairs your cells, activates growth hormone, and that repairs things at an accelerated rate. But yeah, I feel like I gotta give that as another class, so I will definitely do that, okay? And then the 5th thing is switch your thinking, and I'll talk to you guys about what I mean by that. But hands down, you keep going. You don't give up. There's going to be tough things. They're going to be like, I want to quit. There were times where, yes, I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of let sugar back in my life. And my body quickly was like, wow, no, that's not good. So I'll give you an example. There was one time my mom I wanted to learn how she makes her apple pie, because I wanted to see if I could make it in a healthier version, right? So we had to start with her version. And she's like, okay, well, I need white sugar. And I'm like, well, I don't have white sugar in my pantry, Mom. Because I don't bake with white sugar, okay? And so I had to run to the grocery store, and I got white sugar because I just wanted to see how my mom made it. And of course, it was delicious and good. And, I had some. And I was like, okay, nummy. Of course, I felt gross afterwards. But the wake-up call for me was the very next day. I literally felt like I had been hit by a baseball bat, because it's so inflammatory and damaging to your body, and it spikes your insulin and all that stuff, that if you ever find that you're waking up the next day and you're achy and sore and you feel just it's more than likely because of sugar and simple carbs, okay? So that's where I say when you start to reduce that, your pain levels go away immensely, okay? All right. Can you substitute maple syrup? So I'm going to get to that, okay? So these are the 5 steps, and we're going to kind of get a little bit more into this. And by the way, this class is going longer because it's one of my most popular topics that I have so much good stuff to share. So thank you guys for sticking with me. We're almost done. I have a couple main points of just, explaining to you these 5 steps, okay? But they're good. They're good things. So when it comes to wanting to control your urges and your cravings, you want to think about revolving your meals around protein, okay? It's just a main general rule: breakfast, lunch, dinner. Protein is a very powerful thing when it comes to regulating your blood sugar, and so is fat. But protein is one of those things that if you're not getting enough in, your body will do some weird things, and it'll kind of mess with your hormones and insulin. And so I usually tell people if they're going to eat breakfast, make sure you have a protein and or a fat. And I really try to have low carbs in the morning for breakfast. Okay? So protein is a huge tip. That's another talk for, how to get good protein sources in and all that stuff. But I wanted to start there. I didn't want to have you guys be like, well, what do I eat? Think protein, okay? So now the number one thing that I said was quitting cold turkey. So when it comes to just quitting sugar, you can quit sugar and be like, I'm not having a candy bar. Well, yes, I did that. But I stopped doing juice. I stopped doing cereal. I stopped doing conventional bread, bagels, rice, corn, high sugar yogurts, granola bars. Those are loaded with sugar. Fast food, of course, right? Because they just throw who knows what in there. Sweet coffee drinks, right? I had to stop doing my Caribou caramel cooler. So what did I do? I had to train myself to go less and less sugar. And then eventually it was heavy cream. And then sometimes I could just do it black. And had I told myself this 20 years ago when I was first consuming coffee, I was I would have thought, ooh, no, yuck. I would never drink it black. Gross. But here I am, right? Candy, of course, chocolate bars, muffins. I don't ever do muffins unless they're a healthy muffin with substitutes. Cookies. There are healthy ice creams that I will do, but the regular ice cream, I used to do the drumsticks. Oh man, remember those drumsticks? Oh, they're so good. You get down to the very bottom and you have that little chocolate part at the bottom of the cone. Oh, heaven, right? Because I was high. I was woo, sugar high. And so yeah, that was the drumsticks. Definitely don't do pop. Don't do energy drinks. Bananas, I had to stop on bananas. Okay, I can do them here and there now. But bananas were high sugar glycemic for me, and so were grapes. And there's other fruits. Now, people are asking, well, what about fruit? Can you have that? So for me, okay, and if you're in the same boat, if you are insulin resistant, right? I was already in that boat. I was pre-diabetic. My body, any type of extra spiking of sugar, even if it was fruit sugar, was still too much. I had to back down from all of that, okay? So I would swap it for different berries and strawberries and lower glycemic fruits. So I still was getting the benefits of them, but it wasn't spiking my blood sugar. And so I had to let my body heal and, kind of calm down from all that. And so, yeah, now here and there, I'll have these fruits still in moderation because for me, it's all about how often do I spike my blood sugar. And I'm going to choose the foods and the fruits that are going to be lower glycemic, if that makes sense, okay? All right, so that's number one. I had to stop cold turkey a lot of these foods, okay? And when you say stop cold turkey, you can go for a couple months and have it again and be ooh, and then stop cold turkey again. It's a process. I don't expect anyone to be perfect on this, but I do expect people to keep trying, because you can't give up on yourself. And eventually, to be quite honest, it works. You get into the habit, right? It's like a discipline. I don't have those cravings anymore to eat Kit Kats. That was the other thing that I loved. I could put down probably 10 Kit Kats in a sitting because I was oh, give me the Kit Kats. That was my candy bar. And today, if I have a bite of a Kit Kat bar, it's gross. And it's hard for me to be what? How could I even say that? It tastes waxy because my taste buds and my body has become accustomed to knowing this is too much sugar and it's not going to serve you well, right? Because again, the more sugar you consume, the more your body has to be give me more, right? So the swap method. So this is just general things that you can swap. Instead of doing milk chocolate, do dark chocolate because it's going to be less sugar. Instead of soda, do unsweet or do bubbly water. Ice cream, you can do reduced sugar Greek yogurt, but just make sure that it's organic and better. Chips, I do a lot of nuts. There's a lot of nuts that are very satisfying and can give you that salty, yay, nummy. Instead of candy, doing fresh fruit, right? I do a lot of berries. And instead of a sugary latte, I do coffee with milk. So that's the second method, is swapping. And that one people do really respond well to. Okay. Substituting. So we're going to get to that one. This is a really good way to kind of quit putting simple carbs into the foods that you love every day. So we do a lot of substitutions. So here's an ingredient list for just general pancakes, okay? We don't make general pancakes anymore. We swap healthier oils, and then we're swapping the sugar and the flour, because the flour is going to be wheat, right? Or like rice. Sometimes it can be rice, sometimes it can be potato. I'm purposely choosing a flour that is a protein or very low glycemic, okay? And then sugars, there's sugar alternatives that I'm going to get to, and we will substitute sugar alternatives, okay? All right. Are plantain chips healthy in place of regular chips? Yes. I do like plantain chips more than regular ones. It's going to be one of those things where they're not going to spike the blood sugar as bad. So hopefully that answers your question. So here's an example of like how I would substitute making pancakes. And there's a million recipes online. Like, I'm not doing this. People are doing this and making fabulous substitute healthy ingredients so you can still eat your pancake, and enjoy it too, right? So you would have, instead of doing the white flour, you could do almond flour or coconut flour. Some people do protein pancakes, right? Where it's like a protein source, but it's a powder. And then, instead of me doing white sugar, I would do monk fruit or a different sugar alternative that I'll get to, the ones that I'm okay with people consuming if they're trying to go down this path, right? So you can definitely substitute. But I want you to know, when you are substituting sugars, there are a group of sugars that I want you to avoid, okay? They are synthetically made, and they're known neurotoxins. And then there's research that when you consume these types of artificial sweeteners, they cause tumors and they cause disease, and they flame people. And I know that if I have something with these ingredients, like, my body feels it, and it's like, I don't know, I start to feel like, oh my gosh, gross, what happened? And I'll get kind of like this like buzzing because it's inflaming into my system. And so it's going to be your aspartame, acetylsame potassium. That one is the hidden mean one. That is in everything. I did a post 2 nights ago. I was looking at the Breyers ice cream. They have the advertisement where it's saying like, oh, reduced sugar, no added sugar, ice cream, this many calories. Well, the sugar they're using is the acetylsame potassium and then sucralose. Both not good for you. So I'm like, at that point, just eat the real thing, right? You're just eat the real thing, okay, that your body can recognize. So sometimes these artificial sweeteners are bad news. And energy drinks, I'm just going to kind of call it out. Energy drinks are the worst when it comes to these artificial sweeteners, okay? So if you have a popular energy drink that you like, I really highly recommend to just be like, oh boy, I should maybe look for a different one. Because there's so many out there that we all know that there's different sweeteners, right? And for the most part, if you're starting to cut down on sugar, or the simple carbs, you're not going to be craving these energy drinks. You're going to be like, no, I don't need that. I'll take water, please. Or I'll take a bubbly water, or I'll take water with lemon. So you'll see your taste buds change, and it's really cool and awesome and fun. Okay, so healthy sugar substitutes. Monk fruit, I really like monk fruit. It's an actual fruit, but it doesn't spike the blood sugar. And I will bake with this one. I will put it in like my pancakes. I'll put it like if I wanted to make a whipped cream dessert, I'll put that in instead of sugar. And it's been a really safe one. And this one is in a lot of your health food products, your healthy protein shakes, healthy like energy drinks. Monk fruit has been the more popular one. And so all the nutrition doctors that I follow, they're putting monk fruit in as the way to have the sweetness, but it's not going to destroy you, okay? Stevia is another one. That one is a funny one because sometimes it can have an odd aftertaste, and that's okay. Some people are like, that's all right. I don't use stevia a ton. It's just here and there because, yeah, it's like an odd aftertaste sometimes. Monk fruit doesn't seem to do that. And then there's these things called sugar alcohols, and sometimes they can kind of cause gas and just like GI disruption. They're naturally occurring, so they're not gonna like be horrible for you like an artificial sweetener like that's made in the lab, right, that's chemically derived. So you can get really good forms of these sugar alcohols, but be careful because if you have them too much too often, they don't absorb into your blood sugar, and they just kind of like you poop them out, and so some people can get gassy with them. So I use it in moderation, and I just realized I spelled erythritol wrong. I'm sorry. There's supposed to be less I's and R's and T's in there. Okay, and then the question, honey, maple syrup, and coconut sugar. Now I put the asterisk there because Martha asked, what about maple syrup? So yes, I will use maple syrup on pancakes. I will. Now, will I use it a lot? No, because it's still going to spike blood sugar, okay? So it's a moderation thing. Can I use it in baking? Sure. If I know that I'm also, for the rest of my day, not doing a ton of simple carbohydrates or other sugar. So it's one of those things where, yes, they are okay in moderation, but you have to be like big picture, what else am I getting into my system? Now, back when I was having an autoimmune disease, I did not have honey, I did not have maple syrup, I did not have coconut sugar, because those were still creating insulin response in my body, and my body said, no, I can't have that right now. Now that I'm healed and I'm doing things in moderation, yes, I'll have honey. Yes, I'll have maple syrup. Yes, I'll have coconut sugar, okay? So hopefully that answered your question. But it was a really good question, so thank you, Martha. Okay, and artificial sweeteners also spike insulin and make us hungry and crave sugar. Yes, so Guy is right on, because there's lots of studies showing that with those artificial sweeteners, it makes you actually crave more sugar. And sometimes too, it's a trick. You're like, well, I'm doing this diet drink, so I'm good. I can have that cookie and I can have that cake. And there is studies that saying that people who drink diet sodas are typically more obese and overweight because of it changes your gut microbiome, and then the trickery it does in your brain for you wanting more sugar. So it's like, darn it, I just can't win, right? So at those times, I tell people, if you're just going to have a pop, have a regular pop. Don't do the diet pops. I just would rather you just do the sugar. I know, it seems backwards, but I'm being honest, right? Okay, so the next concept here, we talked about healthy sugar alternatives. And we're going to talk about simplifying breakfast. Now, I mentioned on this a little bit earlier that the biggest meal of your day that people start is they load it with sugar, right? So if you want to do a simplified method where you're like, okay, I'm not ready to give up my cookies, I'm not ready to give up ice cream, but I'm willing to try simplifying my breakfast. I'm willing to not go and get, cereal and high sugar yogurt. Maybe I'll do scrambled eggs. Maybe I'll do some oatmeal with butter because it's like a fat and there's some protein. Maybe I'll do a protein shake. Maybe I'll do sourdough bread with some peanut butter. Maybe I'll do a fruit parfait with a unsweetened yogurt and put berries as my sugar source, right? So there's a lot of ways to have a healthy breakfast if you're just like, I'm not ready for giving up sugar. But if you start changing a certain meal and like the start of your day and you're not spiking your blood sugar, you will end up finding you'll crave less sugar, okay? You will, okay? Because you're satisfied and you're not doing the roller coaster ride of insulin up and down. And so there's all sorts of things online that if you are just like, well, I need help with breakfast, there's like these things. And I did put this as like a picture, like if you wanted a 30-day healthy breakfast challenge, I will show you. I put something in my link tree that gives you ideas, because we all need ideas, right? And the goal is you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, because lots of people already are. And then the fifth thing that I wanted to talk about is switch your thinking. This is the big thing. And I have to tell you, it's another pet peeve. So somehow in society and culture, it just becomes the cultural norm that when we celebrate with sugar, right? Right? Can we all raise our hands? We've all done it. Birthdays, weddings, you win the Little League, let's go get ice cream. All right, good job, Tommy, you answered that question right. Here's some candy, right? So we have had this where it is culturally a love language to reward each other with sugar, okay? Because it makes us feel good. It's like a sign of love. So I just wanted to have you guys think about, instead of thinking, well, I did something good for myself, or let's go celebrate, let's go get sugar, why not think of an alternative method, right? Go for a movie, go out to eat, do a special purchase, do a different alternative, like nautical bowls. They actually have lower sugar options. There's a keto ice cream place that I will visit on the way to Stillwater. It's in North St. Paul if you're in the Minnesota area. And they have amazing keto ice cream. And she has you can go right into the shop. And like if you're still wanting to enjoy the guilty pleasure of having something sweet, but it's not going to kill your insulin levels, it's called Love Ice Cream. And she's also got ice cream in Hy-Vee grocery stores. But it's Sweet Love Ice Cream is what it's called. But yeah, so I think you get my point on switching your thinking when it comes to quitting sugar and quitting carbohydrates. And I always think it's just a funny thing, like church, right? Church every Sunday morning. What do they have out for everyone? Donuts, okay? It's a love language. And then like, what do you have at like youth group events? Pizza and cookies and sugary items and Red Bulls. So it's just like we're kind of set up to fail because we're not aware, right? So keep that in mind. Now I have that little 80-20 circles at the bottom, and I say that for a reason, because no one's perfect. You can't live this life perfectly. And if you're thinking you're going to go throughout the rest of your life never having sugar or simple carbs again, well, we're all just going to be realistic, right? It's not going to happen unless you have extreme obedience. So I tell people that there's this 80-20 rule that I live by. When I was having to heal from my disease, it was 100%. And it was a short period of time, right? I really had to be disciplined to let my body fully heal to be faster, right? So 100% yes, I quit all the bad stuff. But now I practice 80-20. 80% of the time, I eat healthy and well, and I'm on purpose with, like, I'm nourishing my body with good choices. And then I save that 20% for those times when we're celebrating, right? You don't want to like, happy birthday, Grandma, you're 80, and everyone's having cake, and you're like, oh, I don't want cake, Grandma, I'm okay, right? You just, sometimes there's like those moments where you have to save eating the sugar to you all get it, right? You get my point. So yes, 80-20 rule is a very good suggestion to help you to be successful. So we are practically done. I wanted to give you guys my grocery shopping list, because sometimes you're just like, well, what do I get now if I'm trying to like cut down simple carbs and cut out sugar? And she's saying to like stop, switch, swap, simplify, right? She's saying all these things. So if you go onto my Instagram page, in the bio under the Linktree link, I have my grocery shopping list of what I buy and where. And I update it because new things come and things go, and it's just, I find it helpful to give you guys resources because I guess, you know, kind of was a teacher, so I know teachers, like teaching people, they want resources, right? So anyway, so thank you. The next class that we'll be teaching in 2 weeks, because I'm doing these every 2 weeks. And by the way, if you haven't watched my previous ones, feel free to like forward through or put me on a fast speed. I'm doing these in order of importance. And the first one I talked about was stress management. The second one I talked about was sleep. Because without those two, I can tell you, oh, quit sugar till the cows come home and you won't be doing sugar. But if you're stressed out and not getting sleep, it's like there's no point in even trying, okay? So then sugar management is number 3. And then the fourth like tier of how I want to help everyone with their health is digestion. Because if you're not breaking things down and like not absorbing, you're just malnourished, and then you can't make things to make you feel good, right? You can't repair your cells. So anyways, that's gonna be in 2 weeks. And thank you guys for coming. And this will be recorded if you needed to zip through and screenshot. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.